Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fourth episode of Newsbust. Today, we'll be talking about a disaster at a Jewish religious festival, India COVID deaths, journalists under threat on World Press Freedom Day, and melting glaciers.
Okay, so to start off, we'll be talking about the disaster at a Jewish festival. So dozens of people have been killed in a crowd crush at a Jewish religious gathering in the northern Israel, in what's the country's prime minister's Benjamin Netanyahu called a serious disaster. So the emergency services said 44 people, including small children, had died in the crush at Mount Meron early that morning. So more than 150 people were injured, and the disaster occurred as tens of thousands of ultra-Orthodox Jews gathered for the annual Lag B'Omer festival at the tomb of Gali of a 2nd century sage, Sabi Shimon Bar Yochai, with commemorations including all-night prayers, songs, dance, and a bonfire. So it was not clear how the crush started, but witnesses said that many of the deaths were caught in a tightly packed passageway around 3 meters wide around crowds packed the slopes of Mount Meron in Israel, and in defiance of warnings to maintaining social distancing against COVID-19. So the medics said that there had been a stampede in the men's section of the gender segregation festival, and casualties included the children. Many of the dead have yet to be identified, and police asked family members to provide pictures and personal information of those who attended the festival and are still to be found. This is hopefully will help in the process of identifying certain bodies. So videos posted on social media show ultra-Orthodox men clambering desperately through gaps in sheets of torn corrugated iron to escape the crush. So bodies lay on the stretchers in a corridor, covered in a foil of blankets. So early reports suggest a structure at the site had collapsed, but emergency officials later say a crush had occurred at around 1 a.m. local time. So police sources told Haaretz newspaper that it started after some attendees slipped on steps, which caused dozens more to fall. In addition, I've also heard that Israel has managed to vaccinate over the entire population, and have now lifted the majority of the COVID policies. And so for this occasion, they authorized a maximum of 10,000 people to attend. However, the festival organizers estimate that at least 100,000 people were at the site on Thursday morning, and therefore it became the largest public gathering since the start of the pandemic.
Can you briefly explain what this Jewish religious festival is?
So this festival is called the Lag B'Omer Festival, where you have tens of thousands of Orthodox Jews make a pilgrimage to Meron each year for Lag B'Omer, and is a religious holiday marked with all-night bonfires, prayers, and dancing.
What are your opinions about this issue? And do you think this religious event should be held in the current situation of COVID-19?
So in my opinion, the occurrence of events like these depend on each country. So for example, in Israel, I believe it is okay, considering how the population has been vaccinated. However, this does not mean that citizens cannot follow rules. So this event was made so that a maximum of 10,000 people attend. However, it ended up having 10 times that number, which then led to a disaster. So on the other hand, countries such as India, who have high number of increasing cases daily, cannot hold such events, since that will just worsen the entire situation of that certain country. And what about you? What do you think of this?
Well, I think that it is not safe. Obviously, it is not safe to do these religious events with the current situation, but I do understand why people are still doing it. Like, I know that traditions and beliefs are one of the very important aspects that people have, and obviously, it will be hard for them to not follow their traditions just because of the COVID-19. However, I do think that they should be careful and be aware that coronavirus is a very serious situation right now, and maybe having restrictions such as only people who got vaccinated or tested negative should perform their religious activity that involves interacting with the others. Okay,
Makes
so
sense, yeah.
yeah. So our next topic is India COVID deaths. So India's second wave of coronavirus is hitting fast right now. Bodies are piling up faster than workers can cremate them or build new paras. Before the pandemic, India used to cremate 8 to 10 people daily, but now they're cremating 100 to 120 per day. The deaths are increasing that lead to lack of crematorium. The Simapuri crematorium has expanded into its parking lot, where dozens of workers construct new cremation platforms from bricks. There aren't enough places that family have to get a ticket and wait in line for their turn in order to bury their dead. The families have to pay for the wood and to burn their relatives' bodies. Cremation is an important part of Hindu funeral rites due to the belief that the body must be destroyed for the soul to proceed its reincarnation. However, due to an increase of demand, there even was a physical fight over the place for cremation, and police were called. The 29th of April was when India reached its highest new COVID infections cases by 380,000 people. This was also the global record for the highest single-day case count, and among them, more than 3,600 people died. India's government is trying its best to take actions as the virus spreads, and many states and cities have implemented new restrictions and shut down businesses in an attempt to contain the outbreak of COVID. The Prime Minister has approved the procurement of 100,000 portable oxygen concentrators, following hundreds of new oxygen generation plants. However, these supplies need time to be distributed and oxygen plants need to be built. So the lack of immediate help and accessible resources means the body will keep piling up until assistance arrives. Meanwhile, India currently has the mutated COVID-19 called B1617. The increase in coronavirus cases is thought to be due to the events that was held on 14th of April, uh, which is called Kumbh Mela. This is one of the traditional Hinduism events held once in 3 years, and many Hindus gathered in the Ganges River, province of northern India, to participate in the annual Hindu bathing festival Kumbh Mela, which is an event to wash away sins while bathing in the holy river. According to local police, 650,000 people finished bathing this morning, and 11,000 to 18,000 believers were expected to continue bathing.
Yeah. So also recently I've heard about this mutation spreading to the UK. Do you know anything about it?
Well, continuing the spread of mutation B1617 in India, the UK has red listed India as of Friday morning, fearing its spread. However, the coronavirus variant that first emerged in India is now being transmitted within the UK after 3 cases were detected that were not associated with travel. And a new report from Public Health England (PHE) revealed that of the 132 cases now recorded in the UK, 3 were among people who are not believed to have contracted it while traveling. This would mean the infections were contracted in Britain and that the coronavirus variant is now being transmitted within the country's borders. Uh, Doctor Julian Gang, consultant virologist at the Leicester Royal Infirmary and honorary associate professor in the Department of Respiratory Sciences, told Sky News that the development was not surprising.
Hmm, interesting. So then moving on to the next topic of the journalists under threat on World Press Freedom Day. So the international community salutes World Press Freedom Day from the 29th of April to the 3rd of May under the theme of information as a public good, and will focus on topics such as transparency of online platforms and the importance of media and information literacy, with journalists under threat, disinformation on the rise, and news stifled in most countries around the globe. 30 years after the landmark Whitehall Declaration defense, the freedom of the press news organizations and journalists are facing threats that undermine democratic institutions and shore up autocratic regimens bent on consolidating power. News Decoder, in association with the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, will be holding a global roundtable on May 3rd to shine a light on the mounting threats to journalist safety, which jeopardizes the public's right to know. Journalism is completely or partially blocked in 73% of 180 countries, ranked by the International NGO Reporters Without Borders (RSF). The numbers of journalists murdered in retaliation for their work more than doubled in 2020 as criminal gangs and militant groups targeted reporters working in violence but democratic nations, according to the Committee to Protect Journalists, CPJ. Sorry. The number of journalists jailed globally because of their work hit a new high in 2020 as governments cracked down on the coverage of COVID-19 or tried to suppress reporting on political unrest, according to the CPJ. Only this week, 2 Spanish journalists were killed in an ambush in eastern Burkina Faso, the Associated Press reported, quoting the Spanish government and officials in the African country.
Okay. And why do you think these threats towards the journalists are happening right now?
So I believe this is happening because journalists manage to obtain or get really close to information which certain people don't want to get out, which then leads to them having to be killed or jailed to prevent the spread of such information.
Okay. Do you think the World Press Freedom Day is accentuating these threats to happen? And do you think there will be less threats if there isn't this World Press Freedom Day?
Honestly speaking, I don't think that these threats will decrease even if there wasn't a World Press Freedom Day, as cases of murdered journalists happen all throughout the world. For example, since the beginning of 2021, 8 journalists have been killed around the world and 303 imprisoned, according to the RSF.
Interesting. Okay. And our last topic is melting glaciers. So the world's glaciers are melting at an accelerating rate, according to a comprehensive new study. A French team assessed the behavior of nearly all documented ice streams on the planet, and they found them to have lost almost 270 billion tons of ice a year over the opening 2 decades of the 21st century. The meltwater produced now accounts for about a fifth of global sea level rise. Over the last 20 years, the glaciers have lost about 267 gigatons per year. This is a large amount that is enough to cover all of Ireland in 3 meters of water each year. Also, the total loss is accelerating by about 48 gigatons per yard per decade. The worldwide inventory of glaciers contain 217,175 ice streams. The research team used as its primary source of data the imagery acquired by NASA's Terra satellite, which was launched in 1999. Immense computing power was brought to bear on the process of interpreting these pictures and pulling out the changes in the glacier's elevation, volume, and mass up to 2019. The team believes its approach has hammered down the uncertainties in its results to perhaps less than 5% overall. According to the research team's head researcher, He said that this new study is a major advance as we get a high spatial resolution, and at the same time, it also provides the temporal change over the two decades directly based on satellite data, which is novel. He also explained that this data set has been validated with an immense amount of additional independent measurements and is highly accurate, so that the uncertainties of previous studies are strongly reduced.
Mm. And so, what is your opinion on this situation? Do you think that it's going to change in the near future, or not at all, and just stay the same?
Well, in my opinion, I think this is a very serious issue. Every year, like each year constantly, the ice glaciers are melting at faster speed. And because melting glaciers add to rising sea levels, it can increase coastal erosion and elevate storm surge as warming air and ocean temperatures create more frequent and intense coastal storms like hurricanes and typhoons. And I don't think that it is going to change in the near future as it has been an issue for such a long period. And I believe that there are reasons why the melting of ice glaciers are becoming more of an issue every single year.
Yeah, makes sense. And so, do you have an idea of what is causing this? Could it be pollution, climate change? I don't
Well,
know.
yes, I think one of the main reasons why the glaciers are melting is because of the climate change. And as humans develop and manufacture more of our needs and wants, we create more products as well as waste, right? And like during the production process, the factories creates lots of gases, which have led to air pollution right now. And disposal of chemical waste into the body of water have resulted in water pollution.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So then you're saying that the pollution has led to climate change, which then affects the melting of glaciers.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah. So thank you for listening. We hope to see you for our next podcast, and have a nice week and stay safe.